Private Joseph G. Bella, United States Army, Vietnam. Folks, I went to New England many times with my work. I interviewed Joe in Methuen, Massachusetts. I was in the New Hampshire, Massachusetts area 2009. It was February 4th, 2009. I met Joe Bella. What a great man, what an honorable man. I really enjoyed my interview with him, and he didn't make it to my first Vietnam film. Hopefully he'll be in my second film. But Joe was drafted in November of 1965, was in Vietnam 66, 67, field artillery, went to basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, advanced training, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, 13 Echo, I believe he was. And in the Army 3 years, folks, and just a great story. Another eyes and ears perspective of Vietnam. And he went on to become a Civil War historian. He's still alive. He's still with us, 78 years old, up in Methuen, Massachusetts. I actually worked with Michael Pollard up there. Michael, shout out to you. But so he's just learned a lot about the Civil War, has always known a lot about it. I call him a historian of the Civil War. Just saw a YouTube video of him talking about the Civil War and local veterans that served in the Civil War there in Methuen. But I want to thank Sean Johnson, Chet Howard again for helping make possible these stories. Guys, thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving. And without you, I couldn't be doing this stuff. So. The interviews have been done. I'm continuing on this year with some interviews, and next year I've got a lot of things I want to do, so we'll see if we can. But Chet and Sean, thank you. God bless you. Folks, that's it. Share this video. Let's honor Joe Bella now. Subscribe to this channel. Voices of History Radio, a plug for that. It's on the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the world, 50 countries plus have tuned into the channel, to the radio station. And I really want to get it into the hands of our kids, living history in the palms of their hands. If you commute, a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, taking a shower, waking up, going to sleep, whatever, mowing your grass, shoveling your snow, put on the headphones, put on the earbuds, and listen to Voices of History Radio. Folks, it's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. As we go forward, I believe we have an advantage after having known the history of our country through the military and what we do and the price for freedom, and we're fighting for the same freedoms in our own country that our veterans fought for and so, folks. So God bless Joe Bella and all my veterans and Voices of History Radio, and let's get on with the story now, and I'll talk to you next time. And I probably won't talk to you again, but if I don't, happy Thanksgiving. God bless you, and God bless America. You went to Vietnam in '66?
October 20, either 1st or 22nd, we sailed from Oakland.
Okay. Tell me, when were you drafted, or did you?
I was drafted in November '65.
Okay. So what did you know about Vietnam then? Did you heard about Vietnam? Or?
It was a hot spot, and it was. Don't forget, this would have been just after the Kennedy era, and before President Kennedy. I think Eisenhower was having concerns in the southeast area, mainly concerning the Cold War that was taking place, and trying to stop the threat of communism. And in our high schools, not just here across the country, I think there was like a prime concern with attacks, and also again the threat of communism. Because of the effects of the Cold War, all those years after World War II, and then Korea.
Right.
And in school, we were taught, like in civics classes and other type of classes concerning world history and civics and so forth, that America and the free world would probably be in jeopardy, and actually were in jeopardy. And there were several hot spots. Of course, the communists would fight and run, fight and run. And Vietnam was up and coming during the Eisenhower era, and Kennedy more or less inherited besides Cuba, the Vietnam problem. Dien Bien Phu was sort of like the catalyst when the French were tossed, so to speak, out of Vietnam. And then the country was divided north and south, with Hanoi being the new capital at that time, and Saigon, the capital of the south part of the country. And
you were in the Army, right?
yes,
And you were artillery.
field artillery.
And what, you went to Fort Sill, you told me.
Well, after basic training was New Jersey, Fort Dix. Most of the New England area draftees attended the Fort Dix for basic, and from there we moved on to our MOS sites. And mine happened to be, after certain intense testing, after basic, you're assigned duties, and then again an MOS category, and mine was field artillery, and I was told I was going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Did you know you were going to head to Vietnam at some point, or?
Well, I guess we all had suspicions, especially draftees at the time, because we had no choice of where we'd be sent or where we'd be stationed at that time. As now, possibly, if the draft were revived, you would go to where you were sent,
Sure.
and you had no choice. If you signed up, that would be, of course, a different story. You could choose Germany, England, Italy, and so forth. And those who enlisted had their choice. And of course, in my situation, I didn't. So I just went with the flow. Yeah. And of course, Vietnam was in the back of my mind. And before we sailed over, each of us in my platoon were all interviewed by one of our lieutenants on how we felt about going over if we had to. Again, at that time, we weren't told directly that we were going to Vietnam. And I just explained, it may sound cliche, but having been born in this country, I felt I should do my part to show my appreciation for being born here, with the freedoms we get and the free elections and so forth. It's like payback, and so why not? I could have gone to Canada. I could have fled north to avoid the draft, but it's not me. The others, whoever did, fine. But it's, America is, I just love this country.
Tell me about when you went to Vietnam. Mark asked you about the weather, but tell me about when you first got to Vietnam, if you flew in there or came by ship or whatever, what you felt as far as the country, the smells. I mean, what did you experience when you first got there?
And it was like relocating to another planet. This is how different it was compared to the cities and locations in this country. Totally different. And we took a convoy from Da Nang, where we had landed. After a day or so, we took a convoy from Da Nang to Dong Ha, and it would roughly be around 100 so miles inland, northwest. And some of the locations we had to drive through, certain rivers and scenery resembled, for those who remember the old King Kong movie, the 1931 King Kong movie, Skull Island. There were vines hanging. There were this small area where the vehicles would fit through. Below was the river, a low, very, very deep ravine type of river. We had to cross rickety bridges, huge old vines hanging, strange birds flying around that looked like pterodactyls to me, large, weird creature-like things. It was like being in Skull Island in the King Kong movie, 1931 movie. That the scenery itself was so foreign and remote, very remote.
Now, you did one tour, right?
Yes, 1
You
year.
have your short calendar. What do you call those calendars where you guys are counting down the days?
We had a countdown calendar. Yeah, I had my.
So when you first get there, I mean, Tell me about the first time you were in it.
We smelled rice cooking everywhere we went to. And it's sad, but a lot of the villages that we had passed through early on in 66, I remember seeing them like just about decimated and destroyed and run over and attacked by the VNA, the Vietnamese army and Viet Cong. And it was sad because some of the villages had beautiful, so I thought, buildings or churches that had unique architecture, drawings, paintings. Colors were kind of bright and vibrant, and a lot of that might have been the early French influence before we had got there. And statuary, beautiful statues of elephants and things relating to the country and the early religions and history. But a lot of the companies, for example, a lot of villages, Hue, H-U-E, Hue was a beautiful capital near the DMZ area. And later on, I had seen pictures of it after I had come home. The Tet Offensive in February '68, which I missed, fortunately. After that, a lot of the villages and areas were damaged, and just about rockets had done their job and decimated a lot of the villages and things.
Tell me now, you're a young man, you're probably in a combat zone for the first time. I mean, what was your first experience with combat? Was it a rocket attack? Were you online? What was going on? Tell me.
The first experience was we had traveled away from our base camp. I think it was only a short stint to guard a Marine base called Camp J.J. Carroll, C-A-R-R-O-L-L. The Marines at that camp had to go up near Khe Sanh. It was the Khe Sanh district, more or less, but we were on the southern edge. The camp itself, we were sent, 6 of our tanks were sent to guard. So we stayed in the upper perimeter. Below that camp area were guards the Marines left behind to guard the post. Well, my sergeant and I were in our tank doing guard duty. We take turns, awake, sleep, awake, sleep. And all of a sudden at midnight, which I remember exactly the time because my watch stopped at that time and it broke. For some reason it just stopped at midnight, and that's when the first rockets came in. We could hear from a distance what sounded like thunder. And we realized very quickly it wasn't thunder because it was a continuous rumble. And what it was the Viet Cong were sending rockets in, pointed in our direction, but they were hitting below. In actuality, we found out close to 7 or 8 Marines were killed guarding the lower perimeter. Again, we were in the upper perimeter so that we could lend fire with our 105 self-propelled howitzers, which immediately we reacted and started firing. And we fired, because I was young then, it didn't bother me, but we continuously fired from 12 midnight to probably 2 hours straight. The back of the tank was full of powder bags, and in the rush of things, we had to work fast. Break the powder bags apart, throw them in the tubes, put the tubes together, and then fire. And that was what we were trained to do. But I remember a lot of powder bags out in the back of the tank, and if a rocket had hit that area, and whoever was standing there would have been a cinder in less than a minute. But that wasn't in my mind at all because I was trained to fire back and fire as a cannoneer, and this is what we did. So after 2 hours, the firing stopped. The rockets stopped coming in. Meanwhile, don't forget the other tanks are firing back. People are all in foxholes. There were foxholes dug up in our perimeter so that for protection against the rockets, and so we were below ground anyway. Most of the other Marines that were there and the rest of our crew. But again, we fired, like I said, 2 hours till 2 a.m., and then it stopped for an hour. And then at a little after 3 a.m., it started again. The rockets started coming in again. And I guess they had portable rocket launches, the enemy, because they could fire and move. On the other hand, we were stationary. All we could do was revolve our turrets and then fire back where we suspected the enemy to be. And we fired from 3 until 5, 2 hours. We fired back. And it was hot, smoke was everywhere. And I could look at the horizon as the sun was rising, and I could see on the hill sparks shooting up when the rockets would hit, like a John Wayne movie, Okinawa, for example, when he did the movie. You can see the sparks shoot up. And why wasn't I afraid at that time? And now, don't forget, I was 19, almost 20. And I would have to attribute the lack of fear to the intense training that we undertook basic at Fort Dix, and then again at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I mean, we were trained in everything from firing our M16s, earlier M1s, M14s, then the M16s to the 105 howitzers, and to, in case of bodily contact with the enemy, a little bit of judo, and handling claymore mines and and throwing grenades. We were trained very intensely to handle things in combat. Thank God. That's what combat is. You're out there and the enemy is there. That's all you're thinking of, is getting the enemy before he gets you.
Did you lose any friends, either
Yes.
wounded or killed? Can you give me a story? Or?
Let's see. Well, as a result of the rockets, when the smoke cleared in daylight, we did lose our latrine. That blew up. But anyway, that was a minor thing. We had to live with that. Well, that was, and then the front of our tank had paint scrapes from when the rockets got a little too close. But no, the Marines again sustained some casualties down in the lower perimeter of the guard area. But no, not that battle. I did lose a friend, and then one other person was injured when we had rounds open. We had to open up rounds. The ammunition had to be opened up one afternoon. A shipment had come in, and so we were assigned to open the cartridges and pull out the powder bags. And evidently, unknown to us, one of the rounds was booby-trapped. And one of our guys did open a round. It was banging the top of the cover because it wouldn't unscrew. So he was using a hammer, which probably wasn't the right thing to do. But again, the round had been tampered with previous. Well, all of a sudden, we heard a loud whoosh. I turned around, and not too far from me, this round had exploded up. And the person, which I knew, was injured. He lost the left eye. His clothes were smoking, like on fire, hair singed. And so immediately, another person, myself, went to the medics building and got the stretcher and put the guy on the stretcher and brought him to the medics site. Between the screaming and everything else, it was really a mess. The round was booby-trapped, and I think one of the sergeants in charge of ammo got in trouble. Something to do with the equipment wasn't researched or searched well enough, so that when we got it, we almost had a casualty. The person ended up leaving, of course. Again, he lost a left eye. But then I did have someone did pass away, or someone else was shot. After I had gotten home, a few months later, I got word that one of my friends in the base in the Pleiku area, I was out stationed down there after 6 months. In the Pleiku area, it was a young soldier who had a girlfriend, I guess, who he received a Dear John letter from. And again, this took place after I was home. And we used to call him Maverick because this guy used to like to play cards. He was like a gambling fanatic. But again, young, and he had to have parents sign for him to enlist. This is how young this guy was. Anyway, he got jilted by mail. The girlfriend left him, or something happened to that effect. He went haywire one morning, grabbed his his rifle rather, and started shooting wildly. So a captain had to shoot him, point blank. And the captain, I remember he had a pistol with a chain attached. I think it might have been a gift from the officers or something. I'm not sure, but it was like a souvenir pistol. To save the other soldiers around, he had to shoot this young person, Maverick, his name was, and I was just, bummed out when I got the news by mail from some friends who were still writing me. And it was a sad thing. But again, it was a letter he received, what we call the Dear John. And it was just sad. But
You're already back home then?
yeah, I had been home. As far as casualties go, no, I didn't know of anyone else as far as friends or associates on.
So you're there a whole year. Maybe you've already described to me, what was the most difficult part of your tour there, or was it, some guys say it was all difficult? I mean,
Homesickness is one.
good.
Which is why when it came time for me to choose my R&R site, we had choices. I could have gone to Bangkok, Thailand. I could have gone to Japan, Tokyo. Manila was a possibility. In fact, I think Australia might have been, Sydney might have been on the list. But at that time, I wasn't concerned with travel because living at home, I hardly left home. I was a homeboy, so to speak. The most I was away from home before that time was probably a week summer camp. Other than that, I was always around home. That was it. I never traveled. So when I saw Hawaii on our list, and I said, "Gee, Hawaii, that's America." So it had been the 50th state previously. So I said, "Gee, that might be." I always wanted to go to Hawaii. I remember looking at the geography books and seeing Waikiki Beach and the palm trees and Diamond Head, and dreaming of being on the beach at Waikiki in my later years. This is my chance. I may never ever be able to go back. So I signed up for a week, and instead of staying at Camp Reynolds, which was the Army base camp outside of Honolulu, I could have stayed there no cost, but I just wanted to go civilian for the week, and it was fun. And I got to call home, talk to my family for the first time in almost a year.
So you mentioned homesickness, but other than that, I mean, was there a more difficult time for you? I've got several other questions about that, but I mean, was in your mind, or let me ask this, after all these years, do you still find yourself thinking about Vietnam, or is it just something that happened 40 or so years ago, or is it still part of your life today?
It doesn't seem like that. It seems like it might have happened 10, 12, 13 years or so. It doesn't seem that far back. So for some reason, I don't have that comprehension of time, being so long and so far away to me. It seems as though I just came from there recently, within 10, 20 years. Then I have to check the calendar and say, wow, this is 2009. And that was the 1960s, so figure the math.
So are you always in harm's way when you're out there? Probably, I mean, where you're at, or stationed, or positioned, or there's a chance of an attack at any time. And are you fighting the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese, or both?
I think it was both. Well, I remember we had a barber, a young Vietnamese boy, cut our hair, and days later they found him near our fence with a rifle, and he had been shot. And that was close. And I remember he cut all of our hair, and we paid him so many piastres, whatever, the Vietnamese monies. And we found him shot, and he was Viet Cong. And we had no knowledge, no idea. Yet we did befriend some of the local children, and they liked us, so I thought, and we gave them candies and stuff, We did have a pretty good rapport with the locals there, I have to say. Although one night we were warned not to leave the base at night at all. I think 2 men did, and they found them dead the next morning in their Jeep. They were killed. So that was like a warning to us not to leave at night at all for anything. I guess they were trying to go into town, the village, and possibly pick up girls or alcohol, booze or whatever. I don't know. but they found two. The Jeep was found with the two bodies, and so that that was a warning to us: don't go out unauthorized. Danger was everywhere, and it was.
Now, when you came home, I've heard a lot of Vietnam stories, but was the transition difficult for you, or was it not hard for you to go from combat back into civilian life, or was that a...
Well, it was a change, and of course the flight was so long. We left probably early in the morning, and I think the total hours, it was like 14 hours to fly back. We stopped at Guam, and I took some pictures, and then from there it was kind of direct to Seattle, Tacoma, where we were processing out, and for some reason we were delayed. It wasn't that we got there and then left. We had to wait. I think most we waited was 2 days and a half, and we were really restless to leave. For some reason, the paperwork took longer than it should have. But then we were warned not to wear our uniforms, although we could still fly standby, because of the unpopularity of that war at that time, and a lot of the protests at the airports everywhere, and especially the New York, JFK and other large airports, LA. We were told not to wear our uniforms. They would even buy us civilian clothing, and it was just that we would probably be spit on or have eggs thrown at us, or because we were military, and the military were not looked on at that time with favor. Again, because of the feelings of the Vietnam War. Very intense. Very intense. So, again, the military pleaded with us not to wear our uniforms in the airports at all. But I have to say, I was safely flown home to New York City. I stayed with one of my friend's parents in Spring Valley, New York, for about a week or two, because I wanted to surprise my family here in Methuen. So after a week, in fact, my mother was getting my mail back when she had sent it, and she asked the mailman, "Why is my letters coming back?" The mailman said, "Oh, maybe he moved or he relocated his unit. Nothing to worry about." Anyway, I did eventually get back. Flew to Boston, Logan Airport, and of course I had no plans on how to get back to Methuen from Logan, since no vehicle or whatever. And I got a taxi to take me to Methuen. So before he dropped me off, we were talking about, I mentioned I was in the service coming back up to, it wasn't 93, it was Route 28 at the time. And he mentioned to me, that the driver, that he was a Korean veteran, and he wouldn't charge me for the trip from Boston to Methuen. He said, "I know." He said, "I know what you went through, blah, blah, blah. This is a freebie, and this is my part for what you went through." So of course I thanked him, and then I surprised the family when I came home. No one was home, unfortunately, but I knew where the front door key was hidden. After a year, I don't know how I did, but it was a certain rock that we had the key hidden in case one of us forgot our keys somewhere else. I knew where the key was. I got it and let myself in and surprised the family as they came in later. Oh, joy.
Joe, have you ever been to Washington, D.C., the
Yes.
Vietnam Wall?
Yes.
Can you remember the first time you went there and what you felt?
Well, yeah, it was. I knew what it stood for and why it was there, and the true meaning. And I thought to myself, gee, my name could have been up there too, and I just happened to have made it back. But I could feel when I saw those names, and it was quite intense. And also the statue, the statue they have, the soldier. Yeah, that was quite a memorial. I did, however, like the design. Whoever designed that really did a great job.
It's quite a it's almost haunting. I mean, the reflection and the
All the names, there's so many
it's just
names.
like it reaches out to you.
But still, a lot of the POWs, those that are still missing, I really, and it's a shame. Although there still are groups out there trying to locate, the prisoners of war missing. Still, I know that's an ongoing process, and they have found remains here and there, and also from the Korean War as well, and World War II. Yeah.
Well, Joe, being a veteran of the United States and an American citizen, what does freedom mean to you?
Well, like I said, I was born here, which I'm a second generation American born from the family, and I think for my being born here, I'd like to reciprocate that, being that fortunate. So I got drafted and did what I had to do, hopefully the best of my ability for my country. And again, when I explained to that lieutenant how I felt about going over, it was just to defend our rights, defend our freedoms, and other wars too, from the Revolutionary War up to the present, I would consider, including Desert Storm and the Iraqi situation, as a sort of a defense of our freedoms and our rights here in this country. And then, also affecting, if you might say, the world, because we try to help other countries. We give foreign aid. And sometimes we're not thanked either enough or at all, but we're able to give foreign aid. And because, again, we have people defending this country time after time. We've always, when the Union was dissolved in 1861, we saved our own necks, our own country, so to speak, by calling the militias, the volunteers together, both North and South, in defense of the Union, and managed to, the Union did win in 1865, ended the conflict, and our country was intact again.
Yeah. Joe, what does the American flag mean and represent to you as a veteran?
Well, again, having the freedoms that we have, the free elections of which we just had one recently, of historical significance because of the fact we have a first-time black African-American president, and the transition from a former president to a present administration. I think other countries can't believe a shot wasn't fired, or no bloodshed, or no riot in the streets. How do we do it? But this is America. This is how we do it, and it seems to be working to a great extent. And if we need soldiers to defend this type of living, which we want to maintain, then so be it. We will go out there and we will defend our freedoms that we enjoy to a great extent. And any type of threat, we can count on Americans to defend and take care of things, as we've done all these generations.
Do you think it's important to talk about these things and to share this with our younger generation? World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. Do you think that's important that we share that?
I think it's up to the individual, because for some reason I fared fine when I came home. Again, I had some moments overseas, but I didn't get hurt. I didn't receive any injuries per se, and nothing happened where I'd be psychologically affected the rest of my life. I had no psychological effects, actually. I don't know whether it's a good thing, or I don't know. I just consider myself a happy-go-lucky, sense of humor type of guy, and friendly.
Did the military change you as a person? I mean,
Oh yes. Oh,
how did it change?
every boy turning 18 or over should be in the military at least once, because when you go through what I had to go through, I'm not complaining, mind you, because you're taken care of, you're fed, you're doing exercise which helps your health, believe it or not. I think you're really helping yourself, and then through the military, you're gaining more than losing, I feel. And you grow up, too, because before I left, I was a boy. When I came back, I was a man. And it's the training, of course, and was I homesick? Oh, the first basic training, I was actually sick in Fort Dix, New Jersey. I think the barracks were a little archaic. We had dry heat and homesickness. Food was okay, but for some reason, and it was cold. It was the coldest winter on record. And I was terribly ill, not to the point of hospitalization ill, homesick and cold, and that was it. But after that, things got relatively improved, to say the least. Oklahoma, I'm really glad I went there, and it was okay.
Are you proud that you're a Vietnam veteran?
Oh, sure. Oh, of course. I'm glad I did go. At the moment when I was drafted, did I want to go? Well, it's like having the fear of the unknown. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what's going to happen to you in a week or 2 weeks or a month. First time situation, it's a new thing. And was I apprehensive at first? Oh, of course. It was something new and different in my life. And for anyone else going through a similar situation, you don't know what's going to happen to you. Example, an incident happened in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. We had a swimming pool that we were able to use during off times, and I can't swim. And one time I almost had an accident that some friends of mine noticed I wasn't above water, and I just accidentally let go of this edge of the pool, and I knew in myself I couldn't swim, and for some reason I ended up in the high side of the pool instead of the low side, and I started sinking, and I didn't know what to do, not knowing how to swim. And I'm glad I didn't go in the Navy anyway, but some friends went down in the pool and lifted me up, and kind of saved me from a possible drowning accident. That was close, and I was kind of nervous about that. But that's just a minor thing. But that was something that did occur in another location.
Well, have people thanked you over the years for your service?
Oh, sure.
How does that make you feel?
Proud. Good. Yeah. Yeah, it was good. The only scary moment, again, was coming home, worrying about the airports and how I would be treated. And then that's why we were forewarned by the military before we left processing. They strongly advised us not to wear our uniforms because of repercussions at that time due to the anti-war sentiment and the feelings.
I think if we've learned any lessons from Vietnam, one of them has been how to welcome our troops home, because we've done that well today. We're doing that, you know what I'm saying, when they come home.
It's different nowadays,
Yeah.
and we still have the right to disagree on various issues, conflicts, and so forth. Whether it's right or wrong, it's the idea that we can disagree. We can agree to disagree, where in most other countries and other nations, riots and other forms of rejection toward the government occur. And this is where we are fortunate enough that we can disagree and still maintain our composure and our sense of true feeling. And it's these freedoms that we we enjoy here. And being the military, we try to keep that process going in this country as long as we can. And that's why we're veterans and from what we've done.
Joe, at the end of my interviews, I always have the veteran give me a salute into the camera. From where you're seated, when I ask you, can you do that for me?
Sure.
Okay. I'm not grading this, we're just
Yeah.
doing it for...
Do you want a Civil War salute or a Vietnam
Show me
era?
what is a
I
Civil
think
War
it's
salute.
this way.
Is it?
The Civil War soldiers, Union soldiers that saluted that way, but
How
the
about
Army was
Vietnam?
this way.
Okay. Okay, let's start over though. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. All right, that's good.